Hello, everybody. She just disappeared.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry
our
about that.
magic show for today. All right. Well, we haven't talked in
Good.
a while, everybody. And how are you doing? I wanted to just really dive in. How has it been for you since the last time we've been together?
It's been a lifetime. No, it really has. It feels like, I don't know, birth and pregnancy is such a transformative experience. I obviously just shared a little bit with Z about birth in a lot more like depth, but it is a really transformative experience. That's probably the best word for it. You go through a whole rebirth, you have a whole adjustment, but one keynote I was just mentioning to Z is that I feel the second time I didn't have that like grief of maiden to motherhood, that like loss of myself, the loss of my life, and like that adjustment that I had to have the first time round. It felt like the second time I didn't really have that experience. She just like slotted into a life where I was already tailoring to another little tiny human. So it was like a really smoother transition. I think having a second child closer to having, my first, there's the two under two. So I have the two under 2 years old, which is a wild ride. But yeah, it's definitely just makes me question everything, makes me unravel so many layers, and I feel going through these experiences after also being in spirituality like 10 years, 12 years, when I go through pregnancy and birth, it's genuinely the most I learn about myself. And I gain like so much healing and expansion and like the ability to look through my shadows by going through them journeys. So yeah, I always say it's just a roller coaster ride, and it's important to just allow yourself to surrender to it as much as possible with also being grounded. But yeah, it's definitely it's been a lifetime, put it that way.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I'd love to see her too, or a picture at some point.
Yeah, I'll send it over for
Yeah,
sure.
all
And
right.
here's my Christmas cup, guys. It's just my favorite cup at my dad's, so it's just how I roll. How have you been, Z? How have things been on your end?
We're just laughing at it. It's the year Christmas cup, my fave.
Yeah.
I've been in really fucking deep surrender. That's been it. There's been a lot of movement for me, a lot of shifting, moving out of relationships, out of friendships, things that are they're just not conducive to where I'm at on my path, and then realigning self and continue to realign self. So it has been a roller coaster in many different ways, and also like I'm just surrendering to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely think it's a theme, because sometimes when I'm going through stuff in like postpartum and pregnancy, I think like it's just a me thing with the pregnancy and postpartum. And then sometimes you realize that actually, no, a lot of other people are picking up on this in the collective too. And I sometimes have to decipher like what's a postpartum thing and what's a like a collective energetic shifting thing. And, how
Right.
do we navigate through all the layers? Because I feel we've been in a deep like shadow season, I'll kind of call it.
Yeah.
It's been like really truly looking at the deeper layers of our shadow and
That has
what's
been.
going on around us and within us, and how we are letting that energy manifest into our human everyday life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's deeper. I mean, it's very deep. Like I don't even have words for the deepness of it, but I do know like my body and its processing has been like, I will not be processing for the collective.
Yes, literally. I have not got the capacity. That's what I keep saying. I haven't got the capacity for this. It's like
Nope.
I literally have a certain amount that I can be giving and doing, and more than that, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Not
No.
happening. Yeah.
So it's been very spicy in my realm, in my world of what's been moving through my body because she's just will deny. Nope, nobody, no, that energy is not entering into my system. So please like back off. That is, I don't care.
Yep. Yep. No, it's true though. It's true. Like literally, I mentioned my Tuesday night group before, and I think it was last week or the week before we did a whole session on learning how to say no and learning how to acknowledge a no in the body, how to hear that no and how to act on it, and like voice our own body's needs and wants and communications. And
Yep.
specifically as a woman and as raising a little woman that I'm doing now, like a little girl, it's really important to me because I became a people pleaser. I became a or my emotions are not as important as theirs, so I'll just do it to please them because that's an easier way to avoid conflict or to avoid judgment or shame or whatever it was. And so many of us have developed them patterns,
very
And
much so.
I read a meme, a quote, whatever it was, and it was like the only mammals that have been taught on Earth to ignore their survival instinct is human women. And I was
Yep,
like, wow, that's so true. You know, like you are taught that knowing your body means just give them a hug anyways because it's
yep,
rude not to, you know, like you'll offend them if not. And it's them teachings and programs that have been in the 3D world
yep.
and that are so damaging. And that as a parent now to both a son and a daughter, it's so important for me to help them find that voice of a no. I mean, with my son, I've got no issues. It's no, no, no. He's literally so adamant. If no one does something, he's not doing it. So I don't think I have any issues there. But I think just raising a girl, it makes me question more so how in all love, I was raised in the most
Sure.
beautiful ways, but it's the societal programming of if you don't like conform, you don't want to be rude, you don't want to, annoy people or like be the problem. So I think that's something we are definitely working on
For
deconstructing
sure.
as a whole. And, like you said, learning how to honor the no. Your body's obviously asking for that to be honored right now and for ourselves not to be put on the back foot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would have to say boundaries. Boundaries have been so big over the last little while of standing in your true sovereignty, sitting in yourself. And it's been very clear to me, anyways, in my body because she's been very verbal about her nose and how she wants to move. And let's just be honest, if you are female at this time in this reality right now, you have gone through the process of giving everything away, people pleasing, being manipulated, being okay to be manipulated because that was the 3D matrix, even playing the game yourself just so that you could keep yourself safe, right? And that's all being cleared and washed away. So as our bodies are speaking up for themselves, the women in particular, it's really easy then to see who's going to stay in your reality and who's not. Because the
Yeah,
people who aren't going to like it, like they are going to move away real fast, and you're going to
yeah.
keep your own self. And those who cannot hack that at this point are going to be gone.
Yeah, exactly. And it is interesting. Like sometimes it will be people who you would have least expected, people you thought was really close to your family, friends, relationships, like you say. And when you start even energetically enforcing boundaries, even thinking about putting them boundaries in place and questioning that frequency, you'll notice people start to shift. And like you say, some people will, there's always going to be an adjustment. And so, even the kindest, loving people that have got used to things being a certain way and dynamic, there will be an adjustment of the dynamic if you're going to, like, obviously stop showing up in that way as much. But people that love and respect you will love and respect the decision to want to put you first and want to, heal and work on your own stuff and do whatever it is that you need to be doing. And that will be encouraged. And the people that have resistance and questioning and manipulation and guilt tripping, they're the ones that it's very clear that you need to be questioning, is this energetic exchange healthy for my highest being, for my true self, because there is so many people that we think have the love and grace intentions for us, but sometimes they are taking an unequal exchange out of the relationship and they're
For
not
sure.
happy when there's a requirement for it to be more equal.
Exactly. They really don't like that.
Yeah.
And it is, I mean, from my perspective, it is like the people that you would least expect or you wouldn't know that that would be the
Mm.
case. And it's a lovely little surprise game. It's like a shake back for me. I'm like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw myself out there and see
See what happens.
like that, who's
Yeah.
not." And it's really easy to weed that out. And then it's just that no, this is we're in separate places now in our alignments. And I respect you for where
Yeah.
you're at, and I'm heading in a different direction. And a lot
Mm.
of times too, like from by me saying that, I've had just a few people be like, da, 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 da. I'm like, yeah, not for me. Love you.
Yeah.
I'm keeping
Yeah.
myself, you know.
How does that make you feel when you have to kind of say goodbye to people that maybe you have like had a lot of love and connection and like, you know, emotional connection with? Because I struggled when I kind of put boundaries in place and like required other people to step up for ways that I'd been stepping up for them in
Yeah.
my time of need. I noticed that then when they couldn't do that and that was flipped on me, manipulation game, I really felt so deeply hurt by that and I had to grieve so much of that like separation and that emotional connection tethering. And so I wondered how do you deal with it? How do you respond to that?
You know, it's getting better over time, but I'd have to say, because I just stepped out of a relationship that I put the shaker bag out there. I was like, okay, no, this is gonna be my direct sovereign self in my truth. And it flared up so intensely where that truth was so there all the way through the relationship. And I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
That sucks. That
Mhm.
sucks, body. And it was layers and layers of detachment, of crying, of grief, of any tiny little bit of manipulation that my body wasn't like felt blindsided by. Was like, oh fuck. Like
Yeah.
I've got to sit with that for a second. Let's detach that piece and then clear the construct of what that was. So honestly, no, it has not been easy. It sucked in a really, really deep way and also in a very sovereign way. It's my body going, okay, I'm going to take one step here and continue up in my sovereignty because I didn't need them to begin with. If that's how that is, I didn't need them, right?
Mhm.
Because I know my own self-worth. So
Right.
it's a process for sure. I would have to say now, because I just released another one, it's getting easier
Yeah.
because I know where my dynamic is. My body's like, yeah, no, if you don't like it, go away because it's going to open up the space for that much more to come in. So that's
Yeah.
how it's wiring in
Yeah.
the body.
Yeah, and it is. I'm glad you said that because it's interesting because it's like I have the coexisting energies going on. Like I have the knowing that it's in my best interest to be not connected to that person anymore because it's clear, but then sometimes the emotional attachments I did have and the wanting things to have a different outcome, that's probably something as well, like the hope or the potential of what it could have been. That's something I had to let go of a lot and let go of like the grief of not knowing why people act in the way they do and like why they can't see things the way I see it and why they can't see the emotional charge of the reasons why I'm doing these things and the reasons why these things are being brought up and stuff like that. It was a very sad experience, like you say, but I'm definitely coming to a more comfortable, accepting place in knowing that all them things were for the righteous reasons for me to be able to grow and not to stay that same smaller version of self.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And circling that, that's exactly what this is stepping out of a smaller version of self and
Mm-hmm.
breathing a smaller version of self and knowing that those pieces and facets of that like control piece or what you thought it was. And that's it. It's what you thought it was. The potential of
Yeah.
what it could be was the thing that was being held on to that was covering up the little self.
Right.
Right. It's really cute. I was just like, no, so it was really cute. This cute story that like my little self like used like
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
covered. That was a bummer, right? And the
Yeah.
body was like, yeah. So the reality is that wasn't even real.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all an ideology all along. And sometimes it's also interesting to look at like situations where you can put yourself out there vulnerably and someone might show up in a different way than what you wanted them to, or like a different way than what you anticipated, but not necessarily a bad way, just in their way. And that's something I've had to also learn as well, to like release expectations of, obviously sometimes we can ask for support in the way we need, so whether it's like physical support, emotional support, spiritual support, whatever it is you're looking for, but also sometimes we can't dictate the way they show up and the way
Yep.
they bring that support if that's their way of like giving and being present and like doing their, showing up in their way. And I suppose I've had to adjust to that. I've had to adjust my expectations on how I perceive people should show up to me rather than how they actually are showing up when I have that request, when I have that extension of need for support.
Right. That's a really, really good thing to circle there in understanding too that people are going to show up the way that they're going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that surrender for me has been needed because they're also teaching me in other ways how to be supported, right? Because
Yeah.
they're showing up in certain ways, and I'm like, hey, look, that doesn't feel. And then I'm like, oh, wait, that person is actually showing up in a huge way for me in the way that I actually need. It was my
Mm-hmm.
process within myself to let go of of what I thought
Yeah,
it to be,
definitely. Yeah, I had to do that lately. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, that's me. That's not them. And sometimes there's like multiple layers. I call sometimes we're in these like reoccurring cycles where you're in resentment because this is not needs not being met. But then
Right.
this needs not being met by this person because you're in resentment and not coming from a kind and vulnerable place. And so it's like, oh well, you're just gonna constantly keep going in the same cycle until one of you chooses to break the cycle of either resentment or of not showing up in the right way, like one, and
Yep.
hopefully both. If you both then show up in the ways that you're looking for, then that cycle is going to be broken. But I've definitely learned recently that vulnerability, which again is a real difficult thing for me, but like kind of overdoing it on the vulnerability lately, like I'm really being like, no, this really feels uncomfortable to me, and I'm feeling really sad and emotional about this. And this is like a whole uncomfortable new ground for me. But it's been so much more beneficial to my life, you know, to just like avoid conflict, avoid arguments, avoid stress, avoid, you know, struggling alone, like just being able to actually voice my vulnerabilities, my emotions without defense, without aggression, without any anger or projection or overload and explosion, you know, in a natural timing, in a way that was calm and well presented, in not like it was a PowerPoint, but you know, in a way that feels clear. Because sometimes I get so with my emotions, I don't know how to actually word what I need or what it is I'm upset or like, you know, the thing. So it's like I've really learned that vulnerability and clarity is just the main thing that we can be kind of doing right now with ourselves and with other people. And if you're doing that and you're being vulnerable and open and putting boundaries in place and you're feeling that like resistance and confrontation, that's when you need to start questioning it, you know, because that's then the exchanges that are not going to work in your highest timeline.
Right, for sure, for sure. And putting in the highest timeline is always something that I'm consistently doing, especially when I'm around people, because my cycle has been I'm going to be vulnerable with somebody and then they're going to exploit that.
Mm,
And I'm like,
yeah,
oh no, that was not the right place to do that. So that's me watching, okay, who can I actually be vulnerable with?
yeah,
Who's gonna take that in the right way? Who's gonna hold that and then be able to reciprocate? Okay, like I'm hearing this now. For me, I would say the last little while when I'm around people and support and whatnot, I've just asked them specifically what would feel the most supportive to you right now, so that I'm not going into people pleaser and like,
yeah,
okay, well, here's what I, and like, that's not the energy to be in anymore, right? Like, how can I best support you? What would feel supportive?
yeah.
And it gives them an opportunity to use their voice as well.
Right? And it actually gives them an opportunity to see what it is they need, you know, like you
For
say,
sure.
because sometimes also like sometimes you can be doing all these things trying to people please, like you say, trying to meet all the needs. And then because that one thing that they are really needing is not being met, they're like, oh, you're not doing anything, or not you're not doing anything, but like, oh, I'm not happy, or I'm not, my needs are not being
Right.
met because like you could be doing everything, but not that, you know, and it's
Exactly.
specifically like in relationships and friendships and family, usually the for me, the dynamic I see present is all the physical things might be being done. So like the cleaning, the helping, the like physically being present. But if there's a lack of that emotional intimacy and vulnerability and connection, then there is no depth to that relationship, whether it's family,
Right.
friends, or,
Right.
you know, lovers. There is no depth and there's no deep rooted connection. And that's like that I see so commonly when people's physical needs are being met, maybe not necessarily intimacy, but you know, on the surface of like basic needs.
Sure.
And so it's like, well, that other person, like, well, I'm doing all the things right. But because that emotional presence and that emotional understanding, that emotional intimacy, that emotional connection and awareness is not present and aware and like there, that person feels alone and feels disconnected from that relationship. Obviously, it's still important to validate the physical stuff that's being done. However, sometimes I think that is an issue in where one person might be growing, maturing in their emotional intelligence, and then the other person might not be able to meet that partner's needs because they're not on the same emotional intelligence level because of their own experiences or their own trauma or their own lack of deeper healing that they might have not gone into,
Right.
you know. So there is that I think is such a common theme, and people sometimes don't understand how to word that in a relationship. But you know, that's hopefully maybe a little bit of a way to word that if you are a person struggling in a relationship or a partner, friendship, family
Yep.
member, and you're looking for that more emotional connection, you know, asking them for more conversations, for more quality time that's not
Right.
involving like
Right.
screen time, you know, actual conversational prompts coming from you, like asking them
Sure.
what would
Sure.
you enjoy to spend more time together and get closer together, you know, like putting yourself again out there in a vulnerable way that doesn't feel
Exactly.
too intimidating, but is in a way like this is my need, I need meeting, but how can we also work together to make that
Exactly. Be
possible
team.
option? Yeah,
Right, right, right. And I feel like that's such a struggling place to be in for most relationships. I have a
yeah,
hard time really
yeah,
voicing like, hey, and if somebody, I would say in my friendships or in my relationships, if somebody's like doing all the things and that's not what I need, then that's for me to be like, hey, can you stop for a second? All I
yeah,
really need right now is a hug. Like
yeah,
literally, emotional stuff coming up. Like, I don't need anything else. And you don't need to put yourself out there like that. Just like, a hug.
literally.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like our emotional needs are really, really huge. And so like how can they support you in that? Because a lot of times they want to, they just don't know how to, or they're not
Yeah,
hearing from you.
yeah,
Right.
100%, 100%. And that again, postpartum taught me that the first time compared to the second time, like being able to verbally ask for, I need you to come and help me with this. I need you to be present, even just for a conversation. I need you to help me get out of the house when I'm feeling a bit, like, voicing these needs to friends and family. Then they brought that reflection back to me in them times of need. So it was like, right, get ready, we're going out, like, right, coming over, I'm helping you clean up, and I brought you some meals and food, and like that support that I then needed the first time but didn't know how to ask for, and other people didn't know how to show up because there was no communication and there was no conversation about them things. So me being brave enough and confident enough to know that I'm worthy of asking for that support in a very vulnerable time of my life was game changer, because it allowed me to then ask for the right people for the right support. And going through that experience allowed me to see who is capable of showing up and who is not, and it allows you to ask the right people, like you say.
Exactly. The right people. Let's say the right people.
It's so key. It is
Yep,
so key.
testing it out, like, are they able to hold that vulnerability? Are they able to, like, be in
Yeah,
that space with you? And
yeah,
I do feel like that's a little bit of a tester, because if they're not responsive to, like, what you have to say, that's a no, man, like, 'cause you deserve more than that.
yeah, yeah. And big, 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 big lesson I've been learning. Like, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because I've been working on self-worth since I got into tarot card reading at 17 years old. I'm 28 now. It's not like I've not been doing this for a while. And I'm a very confident, very outspoken person. And sometimes I'm like, how can the two coexist? Like, it's very strange, I'm a
Yeah.
performer, I'm a singer, I can get on stage and sing in front of hundreds of people and not really be, I get a bit of anxiety, stage fright, but not be questioning my worth, questioning myself. I'm like, yeah, I've got this, but then it comes to sometimes my inner self and saying no, or voicing my needs, or there's been so many times that I've had to grieve lately as doing this work the past few weeks. And weirdly enough, it was the birth of my daughter that triggered a whole deeper emotional connection to my body, and like a deeper grief with all the times that my body might have, even just like a cuddle, I'm not going too deep into trauma wounds there. It's more just like the times where I've not honored my own body's no. And I even noticed, like, someone had asked me for a lift in the car before, and I wouldn't want to go, I wouldn't do it, but I'd just do it anyways because I feel like I didn't want to let them down. All these small times where I'd not honored my own inner child and my own inner self and my own little being inside. Like, she's come out these past few weeks like, listen, I'm not happy with you, and it really was birthing Sky that just made me feel totally different, like totally different about myself. And again, I think it's looking at a little tiny girl that reminds me in my head that's inside me too. And I need to be respecting her voice more, because if I want Sky to respect hers, then I've got to respect mine. And so it's been a real reflective lesson of where I am not going deeper on the self-love, where I'm not honoring my body, where I'm not saying no in times, and where I haven't in the past, and have to forgive and grieve and let that go, and really release any emotions about that, and reclaim my own body, even in the sacral sense and the sensual. I don't want to say the word in case it gets flagged on TikTok, but on YouTube, but in that way, in the sacral chakra way. I also had to reclaim any parts where at that time in this lifetime or other lifetimes where that's not being honored either, even in a way where it might not be consciously acknowledged, because sometimes we are so programmed to a certain way of thinking that it is an issue. And I think that that's stored in the body. Tension stores within the body.
Totally. Yep. It's got this little bit of a fright that comes up of like, oh no, if I'm gonna, and it's really the self-honoring piece of the program does go back to worthiness, all, and all of it, the overall picture of it. And I have to say, for me, like my directness, my voice, I'm very direct. I'm very straightforward. I'm very on point, and people have been taking it as an unloving piece when it's very loving. No, my little child knows exactly what she wants. She knows exactly what she wants to say. She's going to say it, and now she's very loud, and I get really excited about it no matter who's around, because if people can't take that, then that's not on her, and now she's realizing more and more that she can stand up and she can be direct, and that's very loving. That's how she interacts with the world. So
Beautiful. And it's quite a nice place to be getting there more. And again, to know that I can teach that to my children, because you walk in a mirror image, and I want to be able to walk in that image. I want to be able to walk in the knowing that I am honoring myself and my inner child deeply. And like just what you were saying there, your inner child knows a clear no. And when I look at my son, he's 2 in September. I don't do the whole amount of months thing because I really can't keep up with what month we're in. So I just know it's like 1 and odd, it's 2 in September. But yeah, he looks, and like I said, he is no, and there is no teaching him not to know that no. Like, you could socially program him and condition him down, like we all have been, but that child knows his no. And if we allow that to remain in that energy, obviously within boundaries and respectfulness of himself and others, whatever, but on the overall, if we allow him to still voice that, it's going to make it so much easier for him to understand what that means and what that feels like in his inner self, And so my point was, like you say, your inner child knows it clearly. It's the adult that gets, blown up. Yeah, like,
Exactly.
it's the adult that's got the programming as well. Well, it is, and it originates in the inner child, but the child knows, the inner child within knows what we want. And so it's tuning into that more. I think that was a really important piece that you said, and just allowing that voice to be heard primarily in them times.
Exactly. And whether it comes out sharp or it comes out little, it's for, the adult piece and being around others, the no has been programmed to be really shitty. And, oh no, I'm going to get punished or whatever the case is. And really, no is neutral. Like, it's a neutral cycle. Like, it doesn't mean right or wrong. It's just no. Like, can I respect that? Sure. If for one day you message me and you're like, hey, like, I'm going to be offline doing my own work for a good period of time. In fact, I might not ever see you in this lifetime again. I'd be like, go get it. And I love you and appreciate you where you're at. Right. Whereas some people would be like, excuse me, like, we had a connection here, and like, that's gonna kind of, and that's because in me, my knowing, like, I know that I'm gonna see you no matter what. Like, there's never a disconnect, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it definitely is allowing that program to fall away in the human, because we've been so conditioned to believe that this realm is the only one. And don't get me wrong, I still feel resistance. If it's not meant to be and the connection's over, then it's good that it ends. But sometimes when I don't feel ready for that connection to end, 100% I felt like I wasn't ready for that. Like, I wasn't necessarily ready for that. It feels sad emotions, and then I get to a place of peace about it. But I definitely have felt that, like, whoa, that I didn't expect that. I wasn't ready for that. And not that I disrespect their choice, because I honor it and I totally respect that. But sometimes it does hurt, and sometimes it's something I've had to, like, be like, all right, okay, I have to sit with that one and reflect on myself, and also know, like, is this a me thing or is this a them thing, and that's something I've worked through. But yeah, definitely honoring their choice in the overall, 100%. But I suppose I learned that the two can coexist. Like, I can still be sad about their choice whilst honoring the decision in itself.
Totally. And that's a self-honoring piece. And I've had many people do that to me, and I've had to sit with it hardcore. They're like, these are over. I'm like, okay. And my body, that kind of, that doesn't feel good. And also, anything that, for me, my body, anything that somebody else says is their stuff. She doesn't pick it up as her own. And I think that's important for everybody to know in their own vessels, that, like, anything that anybody else says is a projection of themselves. And if I have emotion about it, obviously I need to do my self-work around it. I need to sit with it. I need to do it, because that's okay. I go through really big grieving moments throughout the day, and I'll be like in the store or out in a restaurant, and I'll just sit there and cry for a second, and then my body will be like, okay, I'm good now.
Honestly, I get like that, and I'm like trying to let my face cover my hair, like, just let it out, but just let it out quietly. I'm still working through that program of allowing my full emotions to be seen in a public place. Like, I am very much a hyper independent. I'll deal with it on my own. Don't try and comfort me. Which, and like, I'd like the comfort. I'd want the comfort, but I'm like, don't do it. It's a weird, because maybe I don't know, programming a child. But yeah, I'm still working through that vulnerability piece again. Being able to allow that to be seen in a public place, for example, where I can't control the narrative. Letting go of how I know how these people will respond. If it's people I don't know how they will respond, I get really uncomfortable and anxious about it. But I'm definitely still working on it, and it's something I'm getting a lot better at. But yeah, that's one thing that I love about our sessions on here, because we've had obviously a couple of weeks off, quite a few weeks off with me having the baby and stuff. But it's really nice to have that truth and like just realness. You know, I try and keep it that way in all the aspects of how I work. And I
Yep.
really love working with people that do that too, because
Yes.
it's no secret that we go through our own shit. Like, we're not out here living on a beach, sipping pina coladas, living a 5 dimensional lifetime. Like, nah, your gal's in the trenches over here, just like you know. And I feel like sometimes it's
Yep.
important that you guys know that, because it's not necessarily easy for us either. We don't find, well, I can't speak for
No.
you, but as the conversation we had earlier, we acknowledge this, like, it's not this easy, smooth ride just because you have conscious awareness and understanding of what things are going on or why,
Right.
or, you
Right.
know, whatever you have connection with these realms. It's still difficult in the human realm, and it's
It
still
is.
challenging, and it's still painful and uncomfortable and joyful and happy and beautiful and all of the human
It has
emotions.
all the components to it.
Yeah, and it's still
Yeah.
like we're still there with you guys, and I've really been deep in my shadow work the past few months, and looking at myself on totally different angles. And yeah, I think surrendering is the right word, and not being afraid to let go of them versions of me that I do love so dearly that have got me to where I am,
Right.
but they're not needed now, you know. And it's sad but beautiful, beautiful release.
And it's, I mean, it's a big grieving process. I've been in that grieving process the last few weeks because that yes for me has certainly been deep in my programming. And I laugh about it now because I will like have I had a total breakdown in Target the other day.
This
I
is
was like,
me,
I
like,
just wanted a ginger beer, and
honestly,
with
I
my
feel you
little
so much.
like, rah, my
Mm.
yester self, these programs, and it's triggering other people in the store for their little kids. But yeah, no, I was completely down on my knees. I had people like saying like, "Hey, man," and I'm like, "I don't need anything. I just need to cry, okay? So you can back off. It's fine. I just need to cry.
To my peace,
That's it.
honestly.
I get to show my feelings, everybody."
No, but I do really like rate that, and in some ways I admire that, because I internally suffer because I don't do that. You know, like my car's been broken. Like the first time it was not my fault, but the second time it was my fault, and so couldn't even be mad at anyone but myself. And so like it's still broken. It was meant to be fixed today, but it's not. So I'm really dealing with this. Like, obviously I've got 2 kids under 2. I live with these huge metal stairs, and there's not really anywhere around my house. Like, there's, like in America, you know, there's not really a place there's places you can walk to, but it's difficult, and the pushchair is so heavy. And like every time I go out, I'm trying to like psych myself up, you know, like, be in a good
Yeah.
mindset. And then I have these like mental breakdown moments where, you know, I've got 2 kids, one on the front, one on the back, in these different slings, and I'm trying to get one down, one's screaming for this, and one's crying for this, and I'm so sensory overloaded, and I'm like, ah. But because I don't feel like I want to project around the kids, because I don't want to project in public, because I don't like doing it, I feel like sometimes I'm internally suffering so bad for that, you know, and I feel that. And so this is like a little side note. I've been dancing a lot, I've been moving my body a lot, I've been, you know, in that odd moment of peace I do get, you know, I've been dancing around, I've been kind of just really trying to move my body as much as possible to let out that emotion when I physically don't feel like I can, you know, because obviously I have got a newborn baby, 8-week-old, and an almost 2-year-old. And I don't
Right.
want them to see me in a totally dysregulated state when they don't understand why, you know.
Absolutely.
So if they was a bit older, I would be more comfortable to explain to them what's going on with me and release that, because I don't want them to suppress it. But when they're
Yep.
at an age of not as much understanding, I do find it difficult to communicate that, you know, and
Yep.
express to a tiny baby that, oh, your mum's just really overwhelmed right now and she just needs to have a yell to get it all out. Like, a baby don't really get that, you know. So
Yeah.
it's definitely different in how I release now. But yeah, my point was, don't keep it in totally. If you're like me and you feel like you can't get it out in certain environments, that's cool. But then make sure at that some point in that day, you are going to scream into a pillow, you're dancing in your bedroom to your tunes,
Right.
you are going to ground on the earth and checking, literally, like, we're the only mammals that don't shake it out, that don't shake it off. You know, a deer's being chased by a predator, it shakes it off. So we need to start shaking it off a little bit more and releasing that energy and
Yep.
get it out somewhere.
Well, and like, just thank you and appreciation for that. There's so many ways to move your energy.
Mm.
There's so many ways to move your emotions, and I give my body the pick of what it wants to do because sometimes like it wants to draw on a wall, so I'll like paste something on the wall so they can do that right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does want to roll on the floor. Sometimes it wants to scream, and sometimes it does shake. So
Yeah.
it's like how do you want to move this? And if the outer environment doesn't feel safe to you, then what's going to feel safe to you in this moment to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, so that's another piece too. You can just vacillate your body and be like, "Hey, man, how do you want to move it?" Sometimes that's a
Mhm.
song in my head, right? And
Yeah.
it pulls in a song, and it's like, "Oh, okay, cool. We're gonna move it out that way, and that's
Yeah,
how it's
yeah,
gonna work."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Music is game changer for me. And I had a lovely friend on my Tuesday night who gifted me some headphones and a speaker for my birthday, and I have been so in my element of being in like the musical vibe and like
Yep,
just connecting with that again, sensory overloaded, took it all. So for me, having that music on and just like having a focus and a release has been so essential. And breath work, like standing
yep,
outside on the doorstep, doing some breathing,
for sure.
connecting back in with myself. If I can't release it, then do the breathing, connect back into a calm nervous system. And then I make sure at some point in that day, you know, I'm getting it out, I'm releasing it, and you
Yes.
know, get acknowledging it. But yeah, dance is really helping me at the moment. And we went camping the other day, two kids, and woke up real stressed from my son having teething problems and all anxiety. And I thought, I can't start the day like this. I am not in a good
Right.
energetic state.
Yep.
Obviously, I had my brother and my partner and my friends, so they watched the kids, and I went and I danced, and I felt amazing compared to how I felt 10 minutes before, you know. And I came back
Yep.
so happy, so ready for the day in such a better vibration. So it is so important to acknowledge what you need and provide that for yourself so you're not stuck in the same loop.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And there's so many ways to do it. So that's where you get to be in creation with this piece.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love that though. I love that we've acknowledged that because I don't think it's spoken about. Like everything's viewed as, oh, what if I look weird? What if I get judged? What if I look, you know, like I'm standing out or whatever it is? And I totally get that. Like I've also have and had them thoughts sometimes, you know. It's part of being a human, but that self-love piece comes in, and it's knowing that your inner self is worthy and deserving of feeling calm and safe in your own body. And if
Yes.
you've got to do what you've got to do to feel that, as long as it's not hurting anyone, then it's honoring that and not being afraid of the judgment, because that judgment is only coming from self.
Right. Of course. Yep.
Mm.
And that's shifting more and more too with that judgment piece, at least in my
Mhm.
body. Like,
Yeah,
man,
me too.
like I
Me
just
too.
don't have any fucks to give anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely posting stuff that I'm like, damn, you was not posting that last year, you know, on my TikTok. That's how I noticed. TikTok's like my personal diary. Like I look through it over the past 2 years and I'm like, damn, like, you know, yeah, I noticed the changes. I noticed myself, my expression, my way of communicating. And yeah, I definitely feel like now I'm like, I really don't give a fuck. If you don't like what I'm posting, find your
Yep.
way to the exit, please. Yeah. See you
Yep.
later. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to find my joy and find my spark. And if that
Yeah.
resonates with you, then I'm so cool with that. If it doesn't, then sorry about that. But happy days.
Yeah.
I'm good over here doing me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and for me and my body, if my body's going to post something, whether it's on YouTube or it's TikTok, it's because it's experiencing something it wants to embody it and it has something to tell itself.
Right.
You know, this
Exactly.
is me. I
Exactly.
don't care who this reaches, you know,
Mhm.
like that's what I want to
Exactly.
express for myself. So,
Mhm.
I think that's a beautiful
My way of
aspect.
expressing myself. That's exactly it. That's why I see it as like my journal, my diary, because I kind of just literally think that day, okay, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to post today? What am I feeling like? What's is my way of expressing and releasing what's going on in a way that I feel can kind of help maybe inspire or guide or you know connect relate to others. I don't like them pedestal words, but you know what I mean, connecting it with the energetic frequency. And yeah, like you say, it's just an expression of self. And if we all started showing up more authentic and expressing ourselves, then we'd all judge ourselves less and judge others less because
Yeah,
everyone was being their authentic self. So really, if we start doing it now, then we're going to just get that ball rolling on making that a more of an accessible thing for everybody to do.
exactly. And the more that we do that ourselves within ourselves, the more that it's going to attract those people who are doing the same thing. And then we can co-create in a lot of fun instead of being like, oh no, like let me just
Exactly, exactly that. Yeah. Let me just shrink over here and let me be afraid and judge them and judge me. And it's just so
exactly.
much drama. Who needs that? Let's
So
just all
true.
step
Yep.
into a little true self.
Let
It
it
feels
go.
uncomfortable.
Right.
It feels scary. It feels like, oh my God, everyone's looking at me. It feels like you're like stood naked in a room or something and everyone's looking at you. And I totally get that. But after a while, it was like me starting YouTube. You know, I
Yep.
always encourage people to do new things and test themselves because I was so awkward, hated being on camera, hated the sound of my own voice. And now
Yes.
I'm like, right, let's roll. Like, I've got a really itchy nose. My spirit guides must be here. I was like, right, okay, let's roll. Let's get on there. Let's just show up as myself. And if
Yep.
people like that, great. If they don't, then I'm not here to please everyone. But
Right.
definitely a big way since starting YouTube, And so it's like, find a way to show up as your authentic self and just keep doing it. You've got to start somewhere.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. And take a risk, that's really another thing that's coming up into all this. It took me a while to even like my body wanting to even do the social media stuff. It was like I really just don't like it. So I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
really,
yeah.
I'm not here to get followers or anything like that. I don't really give a fuck, you know? Like I'm really not. So my body was like, okay, but now I want to try it out. I just want to do it because I want to take a risk in myself and I want to see
Yeah,
how I get to co-create with myself in that space because I'm the only
yeah,
one I'm
totally.
looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So and whatever, it doesn't matter. So now my body gets excited about, okay, look, I'm just going to co-create with myself today and see how that works. And it was definitely a big process of me working through certain aspects of camera and stuff like that with my virtual assistant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the human stuff.
Yeah, the human stuff, like going, ooh, like no, that was it. And now it's like, how do I want to gameplay today?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I see it. Like, I struggle to keep up with cross posting all platforms. Mainly, I just show up at the moment on TikTok, kind of a little bit on Instagram. But it's like I just go with what feels right to me. I am the slacky social media creator content. You could ever me because I'm just like, if I'm showing up today, I'm showing up. And it's not like you say, it's not. I would like potentially to connect with more people for energy purposes, but it's not because I don't have that drive to gain approval or followers. I don't have that drive to like do it as a chore. For me, I just do what naturally feels comfortable and right, and then I go from there, because that's what I think we all should be doing. So once it becomes a chore or like a burden, you're taking the joy and the fun out of the experience in itself. So
Right, right,
definitely
right.
just showing up in whatever way feels good to you.
Yeah, and I would say right now it is all about just being your creative vibe because
Mm-hmm.
like, none of us here need followers. Like we don't need to follow anybody else either. That's our sovereignty piece that's coming into play. So that's why me, when I'm inflecting and I'm doing something for creative vibe, I'm wanting to look, I'm wanting to bring in others who are in that same vibe so that we can co-create together.
Yeah,
And because everybody's in their own platform. And so for me, I'm like, I'm not looking and I'm not looking to follow anybody. Like I want to have fun in co-creation right now where I can be entirely my self-expression. I can
yeah,
connect with others then who are their self-expression and then like let's freaking have fun because that's what the game's about.
yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I definitely have some things that maybe we'll jump on next time and talk about because I've got loads of, as we've been talking about,
Yeah,
loads
there's
of
lots of
things
things.
that are coming in, and I'm really excited about that. But I think I want to talk about next time I'm just throwing this out there, but I think it'd be nice to kind of talk about, I've been asked a lot lately on the concept of like new age spirituality, which I guess is what you'd call what kind of the work we do. So it's kind of, if you're going to put it in a label, and like the religion, Christ consciousness, God, Jesus, and stuff like that. And I've had a lot of deep reflection conversations about that lately. So I think next time that'd be a nice topic to explore if you're open to
I
that.
love that.
And if anyone has any questions about that, that's why I'm wanting to kind of throw it out there. So
Yes.
if anyone
Yes,
has anything that they'd like us to explore on that topic,
for
that
sure.
might be a good place to drop any in the comments or on any of the Telegram groups and stuff like that, anything like that. Because yeah, it's definitely I've seen a whole shift in like the new age spirituality, like post 2012, 2015, on 2020. And then now I'm seeing a big shift into religion and into like, there's two facets of it, like the Christ consciousness aspect and the actual religious aspect in itself. And so I'm definitely seeing different things coming out. And so, yeah, I've had a lot of questions myself. I've had a lot of reflections of myself. I've had
Cool.
debates with people, questions, and inner standings of different perspectives. So it's been really expanding for my consciousness, and I'd like to kind of throw that out there with you, talk about that with you, and also see if anybody in the community comments would like to add to that as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. I'm game to play with that. That's been very big
Yeah,
in the perspective field, and also
yeah.
getting narrower and clearer on what those objectives and perspectives are. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm glad I brought it up then because it just came in, and I thought there's no way we have enough time to explore that today. But it's
Yeah,
definitely
get back
something
on it.
I would like
Yeah,
to explore next time, and again give people the opportunity to ask any questions or add in their experience and things we can kind of tap into as well because it's important that we're all connected as a community and supporting
Yes.
each other and conversating about these things, because the one thing I do love about my version of like I hate the word belief, but I'm struggling to think of a lack of better words right now. So let's go with
Yeah.
that. And my beliefs is that there is no right or wrong. This is my perspective on it. This is my lens. If you're
Right.
doing your perspective on it, as long as it's got no harm to others or no harm to self, you know, I might not agree with some of the principles. I might not agree with the narrative. I might not like the words and resonate with some of the things. But I'm totally cool with you doing your thing, me doing my thing, and just going with the flow. And there's a lot of different perspectives coming in at the moment. And I think it's important to share and respectfully talk about, you know, what the different aspects are and stuff like that.
Put it on the table. I feel like it's
Yeah.
important to put that stuff on the table. And I want to just encourage all of you guys watching to like put it on the table too and see what
Yep.
pops up with it. And then, pop a question in our chat or however you want to take a look at it, or even other topics that you guys want to discover.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
What I'm feeling right now is just kind of like settling the energy down and doing a grounding point.
Yeah, nice. I'd like that.
Yeah, just a culmination of what we talked about, which was basically to surrender, to allow your process to be what it needs to be, to express yourself in the multitude of many ways that we can, and really take a look at your yourself or your little self and bring it into alignment and integration with yourself, whether that is to grieve or take another step for yourself. Be really kind to yourself right now because we're expressing a lot.
Yeah, we are. We are.
We
Yeah,
are. Yeah.
totally true. Totally true. And just remembering that whatever it feels in that moment is not as deep. And you know, think about this: what happened this time last year compared to what's going on now. Some of it is totally irrelevant in your life. You don't even remember some of it. So remember that from what's going on right now might feel hugely intense, but this
Yes.
time next year, I highly doubt there's going to be, might be some things, but there's not going to be most of the things that are going on right now that are still going to be continuously bothering you in the same way that they are. So have that perspective, zoom out a bit. It's not as overwhelming as it can feel sometimes. Let's ground into the experience that we're here to learn and grow and expand, and that can look various ways.
I can for sure. I'm just gonna go as bold, take a really big deep breath and get heart centered just for a second. Allow all the energy that was just talked about to move through our systems to get fully grounded into whatever system you want to ground to. Everybody's got their own unique grounding system. And just allow your own sovereignty and your energy to be in flow with your body, however that might look. And note that if there is anything popping up, judgment or something that was a little bit scary, whatever the case is, allow it to be there and give it a lot of thanks. It's there for a good reason and it gets to be there. Good. And then just giving yourself some gratitude for how you personally express and how you connect with others. And just bringing in all of your guides, all of your beautiful people to the highest timeline so that your soul could ground fully into your body with clarity and ease in the best way possible. Hmm. And we're very grateful for all of you guys. Thank you so much for
Yeah, we
listening.
are so grateful, and thanks for the little break that I had. It was I missed you guys. It was nice reflection time, but I'm glad to be back connecting in, and I'm sure we'll find some sort of a flow to how regular these videos are going to be. We'll kind of discuss that, and we'll get back on with you guys showing up and connecting
Yes.
in the beautiful ways that we do. But yeah, I'm really grateful for the space you hold, Z, and just the flow, the beautiful kind energy, the powerful, magnificent soul that you are. Never stop being that little fire baby.
Likewise, and likewise to you. I super appreciate the dynamic we have, and I appreciate how much you embody your realness. It's really
Thank you.
important for me, and to keep continuing to work with you is really exciting to me. So
I
let's
love
keep.
it. Thank you, my darling. Well, it was lovely, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye.